we this team has been working on analyzing the economical impact of economical impact of different brands during the COVID-19 time period. In this project specifically, we have looked upon into different brand categories, how the number of visitors changed over the time period of 6 months during this COVID time period. And in comparison, we have compared this behavior to the other symptoms like the Google searches, restaurant visits, and the vaccine acceptance for a particular state. So we spent some time in analyzing the data. And in this particular project, what we did is we have focused on the California state and looked how the values have varied across the 6 months period and try to relate the public behavior with the brand categories visit pattern changes over the time.
So in this slideshow, we would like to emphasize a couple of graphs specifically for California state. In general, we're discussing the economical impact of COVID pandemic, right? And this slideshow will be presenting mostly just the visuals and a little bit brief description of what exactly they depict. So first of all, we chose to go with the data. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be in March, not May. Anyways, this one is from March to August 2021. And we chose with the state of California, since the California has the largest population. And we chose the top 10 category, top 10 industries based on the visit count. And surprise there, but the food industry did the most of the job there. So there are over like 1 million visitors for this period of time. We also decided to go with the 14-day averages for the values because in this way the plots appear to be a little bit smoother. Otherwise, the graphs were just very confusing. In addition to that, we also tried to pair the graphs so that they will be more or less extensible in that sense. So first of all, the first two pair will be automobile dealers and automotive parts, which are clearly like somewhat represent the same pattern, and it kind of makes sense because they're very close related industries. As far as building materials and amusement recreation industry is concerned, I decided to pair them because they generally follow the pattern from seasonality pattern, where the summer season will be the busiest, but it wasn't the case for amusement and recreation industries. I guess it is explained mostly because of the pandemic and when the lockdowns happened at that period of time. So in March and April periods, amusement parks were not visited as often. Moving on to shopping patterns, we see I chose to go with the department stores and clothing stores. Very similar patterns, and the data pretty much explains in the graph sense as well. So there's no surprises in this category. Gas and travel accommodations were surprisingly different. You see, the beginning of the first part, the first half of the time frame is consistent, but the second half, gas stations were kind of consistent in the visit count, but the travel accommodations dropped significantly towards the end of the August. I'm not quite sure exactly what caused this trend. We didn't have enough time to further analyze this trend here. Lastly, we wanted to emphasize the groceries and restaurants. These are the biggest in terms of the volume of visits. Despite the pandemic, obviously, the food industry remains one of the biggest in terms of visits, and the graphs pretty much explain it. We also included the survey findings from Facebook and Google searches. This in the end, we'll provide the links for the data. Here we see that the 2 graphs for wearing a mask, 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 2 gra for the mask wearing survey done via the Facebook, and Google searches for specific symptoms of like the COVID during the pandemic. These two graphs, combined with the vaccination rates, were all depicted in this the 1 week graph. They are overlaid, and this is for the time frame from May to date. We didn't have the access to this data before, because like further before to March, because it wasn't just available. And some of the interesting trends happening here. So we can see Google searches for COVID symptoms. They were they spiked during the phase 3, I think. You can see on this side when we are trying to analyze all three lines at the same time. So as soon as the vaccinations have become available, the symptom searches started to decrease. Oh, am I busy? Yeah, sorry about that. And lastly, the vaccination rates were kind of very unusual in this period of time. So we didn't really quite understand what was the problem there, but if it's a problem at all. I guess a little bit of explanation here in this trend can be explained by the max usage when everybody started to stop the usage, but when the phase 4 hit, government and CDC in particular recommended to go to having the mask mandatory, which explains the increase again at the end of August. This is the sources for the data that we have used. Mainly they were coming from the SafeGram and Delphi. And now I'll let another person take over the presentation.
Another thing that this team wanted to do was to create a dashboard to show the data in a live fashion and an interactive fashion. So we created a dashboard here using the Dash package through Python. And what it shows is the changing daily visit patterns for top brand categories. So what we did was we cleaned some of the data, and what this is showing is the total number of visits per day for a particular industry category. This is all for California, and the way that we have the interaction set up is that we can choose in this top drop-down menu the type of category. So there's things like grocery stores and department stores, and you can see the trend over time for a particular month, and the date range is the same date range we use for the rest of the data from March up until August 2021. We were intending to include behavioral indicators as well, such as vaccination and mask usage, to overlay over this, but unfortunately we ran out of time.